Morning. So, what did we learn from week 6 of the, Class AAA division, West Virginia high school football? We learned that Winfield traveled to Princeton and lost in a similar, with at least a similar score, but not necessarily a similar manner as they did last year. For those of you who went down or those of you who saw on live stream, could see that the game was pretty tight in that third quarter, and there was a time there I think that Winfield was really giving a scare into Princeton. Yeah, there was some. Yeah, I'm not going to hide the fact that there were some issues that Winfield had in stopping Princeton, but that game was a much different game despite the score. So, all right. So, but the loss does not, really, put a huge damper or like playoff chances on to Winfield. That was a 5.3 point gain in that loss. Yeah, that's a difference of the 12 points they could have gotten with the base points plus Princeton's 4 wins up to that point would have been 16 points. So yeah, that's about, it's just around 11-point difference, but they still gained 5.3 points, and every victory by Princeton here on out, gives them extra points for that strength of schedule. So, yeah, it's a loss, but like I've said previous, if you're going to lose games, you lose to good teams so that you still gain points from losing. All right, as far as like the rest of the rundown from this past week, I'll go over Winfield's schedule. Winfield's next opponent, Ripley, lost to Roane County. Nitro beat Point. Spring Valley beat Riverside in a close game, 17-15, much closer than I would have thought. Yeah, I picked Spring Valley to beat Riverside, but I wouldn't have thought it had been a 17-15 game. So I don't know. I don't know what that says. I don't know if it says that maybe Riverside despite their record, is much better than their record, or maybe Spring Valley, I don't know, had an off night. I don't know. McGoffin County lost to Powell County in a shootout, 48-40. Kind of disappointing there because obviously we're rooting for McGoffin County to give Winfield a couple bonus points if they can do it. I think they have 4 games left, and I'm hoping for maybe they can split and get 2 out of that. Hoover beat South Charleston, which was a gain of 1.2 points for Winfield because of the previous loss to Hoover, which again, that goes back to that whole kind of quirky thing where if South Charleston had beaten Hoover, that'd been a 1-point gain for Winfield, but it's a 1.2-point gain because the team that beat them beat the team that they beat. If I said that correctly, and I think I did, and hopefully you understood it. And then Wayne beat Lincoln County. All right, so other games that were in the Class AAA of significance: Greenbrier East handed it to Shady pretty good, 43-6. RCB beat East Fairmont. Elkins beat Grafton, and a couple games that I kind of maybe had picked going the other way. So a couple of surprises. Northern Garrett County beat Hampshire. I talked a little bit about Hampshire last week. And Nicholas County lost to Midland Trail. All right, so that's the rundown for this past week. So now let's go ahead and screen share again so I can show you what the gross points are right now, as well as my updated version of my points for my year-end points, and then a couple other little things. So we'll just do that here in 1 minute. All right, so as far as this week is concerned, let's just go through this real quick. I'm showing you the screen where I'm showing you on the left here, the total points up to this point. Yeah, you can draw your eyes all the way down to Winfield at 45.6. So they're still in the top 16. Again, it's early. They've only played 5 games, so it's all about end of season. It's not now. There is no, if the playoffs were to start today after 5 weeks, they don't do that. So I don't concern myself with that. So again, like one of the things I like to say all the time is there's plenty of meat on the bone, and there is plenty of meat left on the bone as far as the rest of the schedule goes to get those points back up. But you just run through it. Again, I don't know if this is a direct correlation to what the rankings show, like when the SSAC puts out their computer rankings or anything. This is their points. This is not, I'm not dreaming up new point system. But as far as like their averages, I don't know if that's going to reflect it. I just again, like I've said before, I don't necessarily like to do it that way. I think it's better to look at it as in a cumulative type thing. You're banking points each week. You don't ever lose points once you have them. So keep banking them so you can catch each of those thresholds. And we'll look at the thresholds here in a second as well. And so that you get yourself in the playoffs, get your home game, etc. All right, so that's what those are. Now on the right, I'm just going to keep scrolling past. I've done the previous couple weeks, and now I'm getting to where you can see right here. And now I know your eyes are going to notice the teal numbers, and I'll talk about those in a minute. But here is my updated projections for year end. And yeah, I mean, for those of you who are looking at it and say, okay, wow, some of those numbers are a bit different than they have been. Yeah, that's true because I spent some time and I really went through and said, okay, we got some real data in. We got some. This is my third projection. Let's go back through and let's really look at things. And so some things have changed. Some teams have maybe have played a little bit better than I thought, or not quite as well as I thought, both in terms of like the Class AAA teams as well as some of those the opponents of those teams. So as a result, some points have been added or even subtracted. Um, so again, you see here that I have Winfield it finishing in the 10 spot, and in this case, they would be playing Nitro, but don't get hung up on rankings as much as in placements in terms of that goes. It's more about the numbers on the far right, which are in the green, which are the thresholds. The top 16 just to get in has moved up a bit. I went from 111 to 115. And the other numbers have maybe moved just slightly. I don't think a whole lot, maybe a point or so. But that to me is the most important thing is just to keep banking those points each week, keep winning those first level games, the games that are in your control, so you can bank those points. Um, but again, I don't get hung up on exactly who and everything like right now. Um, and yeah, I'll say the fact that I feel like Winfield needs to go undefeated the rest of the way in order to get in the playoffs, because I just don't think there's enough points out there to gather to get in the top 8 without being undefeated. Now, as far as the teal numbers are basically the highs and lows. What I've done is I've taken what I think is a realistic approach to each team and their schedules, and again their opponent schedules to a degree. And meaning like, okay, if things really go well, to a point, like I said, I'm not going like some teams I just don't see are going to either lose or win certain games. Um, yeah, I could be surprised if that's the case. Then everything those things will change. But right now, this is what I see. Like you see, Princeton, their high low is 176, 166. Bridgeport 175, 162. And then the one I'll say two other things real quick. One, Greenbrier East 191 for a high, 143 for a low. That's the biggest one in there in terms of like how divergent the numbers are. That's the biggest one. Kind of surprised me doing it. It's just that I just think that they've got a ton of meat on the bone, and they've played some decent football. So they've got some games in there. Maybe it'll be surprise a little bit, but keep this in mind. If one team is going to be high, another team is going to be lower because there's a lot of games that are between opponents in this. It's like. I'll say it, Winfield Nitro. Nitro can't have 152 and Winfield 143. That can't happen because in that case, the loser is going to be on the lower end, not necessarily the lowest end, not necessarily on that the under the S column. They're not necessarily going to have that number, but they're not going to be under the R column either. They're going to be somewhere in between. So not everybody is going to have these big numbers on the left because of the common games they're playing. Now again, I'll scroll over real quick. Here again are the thresholds. All right, so let's go. We'll get past this and we'll just go again to my
bracketology, we'll just go through this real quick. It's basically the same. The teams that I have out right now are St. Albans, Grafton, Point Pleasant, Shady, Lincoln, Brook, and Ripley. I don't know that there's much change there. Uh, on the bubble, there's some teams that have kind of moved down. Lewis County is one. It's moved down on the bubble, and if they don't play better, they're going to be out of contention. So, but you can see who the teams are on the bubble, and now the contenders. Um, Basically the same. There's a little bit of movement, not a whole lot, but basically the same. This week will say a lot as far as that goes, because as we're going to talk about him here in a second, there has been some, there are some games between AAA teams that will really affect the standings. Whether I'll let you know next week whether or not if one team wins versus what I predicted. I'll let you know that. Last thing I'll say is, and I'll just kind of go back to the total points and go back to my year-end projections. Again, I'll talk about Team A, Team B. Both of them are in the playoffs at this point, and I guess I'm just going to keep saying the same thing I did before. Team A, has that nine double A teams, two triple A teams on the schedule. Team B, um, four AAA and six 4A teams on their schedule, and I have Team B with a lesser record, in not only the playoffs but in a home game situation, and Team A barely getting in, and I made some adjustments, so I think they can get in at 8-2, but they're going to be sweating it out to get in at 8-2. So if they don't go 9-1 or 10-0, they're not getting in. All right, so that's the screen share for the week. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to next week's games. We'll talk real quickly about who Winfields has. Winfield has Ripley, of course, but who Winfield's opponents have, and then the other, what I consider big games, are around Class AAA.
All right, as we look ahead to this weekend, this Friday night's games, and wrap things up, we'll just go real quickly over who Winfield's opponents have. There's a common opponent game: Nitro hosting Lincoln County. Hoover has a bye. South Charleston at St. Albans, a winless St. Albans. It'd be nice to have South Charleston have an opportunity to win that ball game to give Winfield a bonus point because of their earlier victory over South Charleston. McGoffin County home versus Elector County Central Kentucky. Again, rooting for McGoffin County, get that win, so give Winfield that extra bonus point. Greenbrier East is at Princeton. That's a big game, both in terms of a common opponent or opponent game that in Princeton, as well as in Class AAA, because this could be a game where if Princeton were to beat Greenbrier East, that gives a Winfield 1.2 points for the strength of schedule component. Plus, it can help knock down Greenbrier East a little bit. I mean, in terms of what we talked about in the screen share, I showed you that Greenbrier East has that high potential in terms of points. I wouldn't necessarily have given them that higher potential maybe prior to last week, but now I think I watched them play Shady. They got a pretty good football team, and I think they could, they have an opportunity against Princeton. So that's why I upped their point potential. But for Winfield's sake, we're really rooting for Princeton here over Greenbrier East. Shady is at Liberty Raleigh. Riverside's at Woodrow. Riverside seems to play everybody tough, like they did Spring Valley last week. Maybe they can get one here and give Winfield a chance to pick up points when they play Riverside. Point is at Warren Local, Ohio. And of course, Winfield is Ripley. Other games that are in Class AAA that are of significance: Bridgeport is at Spring Valley. That's really a big game, more so probably for Spring Valley than it is for Bridgeport because of the potential for Spring Valley. I'm rooting for Bridgeport, because if you can keep Spring Valley from accumulating too many points, and if there's opportunities for home games and that kind of thing, as far as the playoffs, you don't want Spring Valley to accumulate points. Elkin's at North Marion. and John Marshall at Kaiser. So yeah, so there's a lot of, I think, really good and really significant games in Class AAA this week. So we'll see how this works itself out on Friday and see where the playoff math is, and see hopefully Winfield can pick up some big points with a win over Ripley, and that would be a 15-point win if they can get it. It's a 12 base points plus the 3 wins that that Ripley has already accumulated, plus maybe get some help from Princeton and that kind of thing, maybe help from South Charleston. All right, so we'll wrap things up, and then we'll see you next week. Thanks.